So after the inauguration, I was crashing out and I posted this video.
Please stand for the playing of our national anthem.
Donald Trump is a white supremacist. Full stop. If you vote for him again, you're a white supremacist. Full stop.
Which kind of felt like dropping a boulder into the still lake of my audience. If you don't know me, I'm Sarah. I'm the mom of Justin Bieber the talking cat, as seen on TikTok and Instagram, and I had never posted anything like this before, at least not on the main feed. And I fully expected backlash from this. I was mad. I really didn't care what the response was going to be. I was just like, I cannot be polite for like a second longer. But I was really surprised by what happened. I actually had a substantial net gain in followers across both platforms, and I got less hate than I do on my normal posts, for which I have a fanny dooley for you. The internet loves kitties. They hate it when a woman loves cats.
Why do you think that is?
But the other thing that happened was that I heard from a lot of people that they were relieved to find out that I was like a safe cat account to follow. And that they had been growing increasingly suspicious of the silence among some of the other pet accounts that they followed. This is something that I had been noticing for a long time, right? Like, why is the pet community, as compared to other niches, so silent? And why did I feel like this was such an extreme thing to post? Granted, my post was particularly spicy, but I truly think that posting anything about the election would have felt extreme. So today I want to talk about my experience with apoliticism in the pet niche. I want to talk about how I think we got here, and I want to brainstorm ways that we as a community can try to move the needle, to try to make this a safer space for both our marginalized community members and for marginalized creators. And I want to make that process feel approachable, and I want to find practical ways that we can kind of bring that mindset into our content, even if you run a faceless pet account. I want to pause here because I switch back and forth in this video between addressing fellow creators and addressing like audience members. This video is intended for both. I don't want you to be like, am I supposed to be here? Because I think that this problem affects the community at large and we need to solve it collectively. And if your guard is going up, I want to try to bring that down because this is not a call out post. I'm speaking to myself here, like I need to change too. And I know that this subject is uncomfortable to talk about. And to be honest, this was an uncomfortable video for me to make. I kept trying to talk myself out of it because I was like, I feel like there are so many people who would do a better job of making this video than me. I feel like I'm not educated enough. I might not cover this subject perfectly. I might make a mistake. I don't have answers to some of the problems that I'm bringing up. And then it's like, is talking about this online even going to do anything? Like, is that just virtue signaling? It's gonna invite criticism. I run a cat account. This is so far outside of my lane. And then I was like, I think that this is how we got here. So my goal with this video is to start a dialogue. I reached out to my network of fellow pet creators and I talked to as many of you guys as I could. I tried to gather kind of a range of audience sizes and people from different backgrounds. And I asked you if you wanted to speak up but didn't feel comfortable, what are the reasons for that? So I want to address as many of those reasons as I can. And I want to provide really concrete suggestions. And in doing so, I really want to look at this subject with curiosity. I think that the only way we're going to make change as a community is if we get more comfortable talking about it. And I don't want you to feel like you have to drop a boulder into your audience. But I do want you to feel empowered to drop a pebble. And I'm sorry that that was cheesy, but let us begin. I had noticed this silence ever since joining the pet community, and I was finding it really jarring switching between my personal and my pet account. On my personal account, people were like speaking up, they were sharing resources, they were talking about like their feelings.
Hope you guys are having a good day.
And on Justin's account, where I, primarily follow other pet accounts, it was crickets. Honestly, I was starting to get a little sketched out. I was like, did I accidentally join like a huge MAGA circle, because like they tend to be quiet. And as time went on and I started making friends and I started getting invited to these like creator chats, I learned that the majority of us are left leaning, thank God. And people were devastated about the results of the election. And so then the question became, why is this the norm? So, as informed by my personal experience, as well as the input from my wonderful network of creators who chimed in, thank you so much for like your vulnerability and for trusting me with that. Here are my theories. So pets are universally beloved, right? Like they feel inherently apolitical. And they're not, as we're going to talk about, but generally a cute pet is going to draw in an audience from like across the board. And you're not going to think about this when it's happening, because when your pet is like popping off online, it feels good. You're like, oh my God, everybody loves my child. And of course they do. And you're going to gather an audience that you feel connected to, and you're going to chat with them, and you're going to bond over your really cute pet. And especially if you are a white passing, straight passing creator, politics are probably not going to come up on their own. And this is especially true if you run an account that is focused solely on your pet and humans like never show up, because there are no signals, right? When I first started my accounts, I had like bright green hair, and for a while I had like a poster in the background that says coffee makes you queer. Shout out to Amos Paul Kennedy Jr., fantastic artist. But like I was trying to give these kind of subtle signals, right, that I'm queer. And I think that that did a little bit of legwork in kind of curating my audience, but I knew that that was not doing enough. And the longer that I went without saying anything, and the bigger that my audience got, the more that I started to feel boxed in. I think that I struggle with people-pleasing tendencies, and there was a part of me that was like, I don't want to like disappoint my audience, who at this point has been following me for years. And I have found that this culture of silence is reinforced, even by like well-meaning members of our audience. I think that there's a general tendency towards introversion among animal lovers. I think that we tend to be sensitive, and I also think that there is a pervasive and arguably harmful rhetoric.
I spend this entire video pronouncing rhetoric like rhetoric, but also like why is it not pronounced that way? Because rhetorical, but whatever. I got my vocabulary from books. Sue me. Anyway, I say it a lot, so take a sip of water every time I do and stay hydrated.
Harmful rhetoric of, well, I just like animals better than people, you know? I'd rather hang out with my dogs/cats. And like, as somebody that loves being home with my cats all of the time, I get it. But I think that we have to be very wary of misanthropy as a belief system. I've also found this culture of silence to be self-reinforcing. When you're looking around and you're not seeing examples from other creators, it can start to feel like by speaking up, you are like rocking the boat. And then there are logistical concerns, like losing a portion of your audience can come with financial repercussions. And if you are relying on your account as a source of income, that's a real concern. There was a common fear of retribution from employers, from people you knew, fears of harassment, and then a general sentiment of, you know, as a creator, I already deal with so much hate. How could I possibly handle more? And then I heard a very common rhetoric that you don't want things to change. And I'm going to spend some time on that next. So over the past few years, I've become a little more politically active on my Instagram stories, which helped to curate at least a portion of my audience, right? Like Instagram stories are not shown to a very big percentage of your audience for whatever reason, but like most of the people who interact with my stories at this point generally share my beliefs. A few months ago, I posted about feeling generally uneasy running my account. I was feeling like I was just kind of furthering the status quo. I was like, it's starting to feel, frankly, a little unethical to be like posting my cute little cat pictures while like the world around us is on fire. And the feedback that I got from my audience was, well, you know, we like seeing these cute cat videos. It's stressful seeing so much political content online, and like we need a place to unwind on the internet, and we need a safe space. And that was the feedback that I got from a lot of creators as well. Running this account is like my reprieve, it's my hobby. And so that just gave me further qualms because I want to be a safe space. Doom scrolling is arguably bad. It can overwhelm us to the point of inaction. Joy can be an act of rebellion in a world that's like trying to crush us. But what is a safe space? Because if I mention like trans people, is that no longer a safe space? If I brought up my own queerness, is that popping this safe little bubble? Who is this safe space for? Who is it helping and who is it harming? And finally, something that I really want to highlight in this video is that I think that there is a way to present activism and resistance in a way that is joyful. If talking about politics stresses you out, what about framing it as like uplifting your community and supporting vulnerable members? I think that addressing social issues can absolutely still give you that warm, fuzzy feeling. I've found so much joy in creating community online. I love having a space where we can share these values of like empathy and communication. I love that I can advocate for animals and I can feel like I'm heard. And I think that I felt the proudest of myself when I've like shared a fundraiser and seen people donate. That's so cool. But I know that for some of us, it still feels like it's just outside of your comfort zone entirely. And I've heard the rhetoric of like, well, I just don't do politics. Like it has nothing to do with my account. So let's dive into that one. So we actually talk about politics all the time in the pet community. We're actually pretty loud about sharing our opinions. We talk about what pet food you should feed, adopt, don't shop, ethical breeding, animal rescue, fostering, TNR. I see us advocating for positive reinforcement, fear-free training, consent in the way that we care for our animals, cooperative care, and the use of the word owner and like this idea of having dominion over our animals. And my account focuses on the buttons, which were like directly inspired by an accessibility device, right? Like AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication, and it's used to help disabled and neurodivergent people communicate. Pets don't exist in an apolitical bubble. They exist in our world, which is full of racism and classism and homophobia and injustices, and that bleeds into the animal world. We see it in the banning of bully breeds, in discrimination from rescues against adopters. So many of the problems that we face in rescue stem from systemic injustices that affect people. And to address this attitude of, pets are better than people, I think that holding negative beliefs about humanity prevents us from feeling like change is possible. Justin is a very smart cat. He does not run my account. I run my account. All of our accounts are run by people who are affected by this world and the policies that exist within it.
We're living in a society.
And for so many people, existence is political. They have to fight for their right to exist, for accessibility, for visibility, for justice. They don't have the luxury and the privilege of opting out of this. I think that if we hold privilege, we have a responsibility to use it. And luckily for us, when you have a platform, people are more inclined to listen. I spend a lot of time thinking about the idea of being an influencer. I hesitate to call myself one because, let's be real, you guys are here for Justin. But you guys trust me, and that means a lot to me. And I spend a lot of time, too much time, researching best care practices for cat ownership, because if anybody is swayed by me, I want that to be in a positive direction. If people are listening to us, we have an opportunity to model the behaviors that we want to see in the world. And I want to see more kindness. I want to see more empathy. And I want to see us out there kicking ass and defending our democracy before it is too late. I want us to ask ourselves, why are we posting? What is our motivation? And I would hope that for most of us, that motivation is not number go up, but is rather striving for genuine connection. And this touches on income because I think that we are moving further and further away from these husks of accounts that have huge followings and little personality. I think that a community that is authentically connected to you means so much more. These are people that are going to follow you across platforms and, sign up for your ebook. They're going to trust your recommendations. I think that if you are trying to build something for yourself online, you will ultimately be rewarded for telling your audience who you are and what you believe in so that they can confidently stand by you. And I think that if a brand drops you for advocating for inclusion, that's going to be a really bad look for them. And it's going to be a bad look for you if you continue to partner with them. I can't pretend that we don't live in a world that we are, forced to sometimes make choices that are not perfectly aligned with us. Progress, not perfection. But I think that we hold a lot more power than we think we do. I've also seen this rhetoric of I don't owe my political beliefs to anybody. That's private. Which, sure, that's absolutely your decision. But I think that it's fair for your audience to ask. I think that more and more people are becoming conscious of where they shop and the brands that they support. And there is so much to be said about the ethics of turning a human into a brand. But for better or for worse, we live in the attention economy, and creators are profiting off of views, either directly or indirectly. And I think it's very fair to want to know who you're supporting. And again, as influencers, we influence people. Personally, I want to make sure that I'm being influenced in a direction that I want to go. I think that it's easy to feel like opting out of everything that's happening is a neutral decision. But I think that we really have to internalize the idea that choosing not to speak up is an action, and it has consequences. Silence enables those who are causing harm. It protects abusers. It normalizes tyranny. We've seen this over and over through history, and we're seeing it now. I think that creating a safe space online means creating a space that is explicitly welcoming to marginalized groups. I think that it means clearly signaling your support and your allyship. And it means not tolerating oppression. This is the paradox of tolerance. If we tolerate community members who are unsafe, our community becomes unsafe. And as the political climate escalates, I think that if I am doing anything that allows a white supremacist to feel comfortable following me, I am doing something wrong. And if I did that through my silence, I still did that. We can't opt out of this. These people are in our communities right now, and they are causing harm. I don't think that we need to like drop everything and become political influencers in order to fix this, unless you are so inclined. I think that we have the power right now with what we are already doing to change the culture of our community. So how do we change this? Especially if we're an account that only posts pictures of cats. Well, lucky for you, I have a list of ideas. Diversify your feed. It is very easy to stay in a bubble, and I would argue that the algorithm encourages this. There is a creator who has done this work for you. Her name is Cassidy of Ginger's Naps, and she has created a list of over 400 Black pet creators, as well as rescues and small businesses. By the way, any resources that I mention are going to be linked down below. Which brings me to my next point, which is shop and boost minority-owned businesses. You can use the list I just mentioned. It has over 250 Black-owned pet businesses specifically. Super easy. Buy from them, support them, shout them out, make a post highlighting them. Check your sponsors and partnerships. There's a website and an app called Goods Unite Us where you can look up brands and track their political party donations. It also recommends alternatives. Another website that does this is called opensecrets.org. I like to cross-reference them because sometimes they contradict one another. Sharing stories. This is a really easy one if you don't feel confident in your own voice yet. When you see somebody else speaking up in a way that resonates, you can boost it. You can give it more visibility. You can signal with clothing. If you're an account that only features your pet, you can have like Fluffy show up with a rainbow bandana, with a trans pride bandana. If you show up, you can wear clothing with slogans. I was recently recommended a brand called Cat Magic Punks. They do anti-fascist cat clothing. But that's a really low-key way to start signaling support. You can celebrate diversity holidays and heritage months. Sarah Mount has a calendar for this. You can pick one that you want to be an ally for and make a post. You know, happy Trans Day of Visibility. Fluffy's glad you're here. You can highlight a mission statement. I loved this idea from Weird Familiars, who pinned a series of Instagram stories to a highlight talking about what a safe space means to them. You could also do this with a pinned post. Mr. Fishtopher did it with a profile picture. You could put it in your bio. You can say it with a meme. You can just spit it out. It feels good. And you can do it in a way that feels natural to you. I got a kick out of this one from Cinna Speaks, who makes these like weekly beautiful topple posts. And she put this text behind one. I don't know if that's technically a meme, but it made me laugh. You can also highlight injustices within your niche. Some great examples are this post by Ginger's Naps highlighting bully breed discrimination, and this post about discrimination within the pet adoption industry by Simon Sitz. This is just like a handful of ideas. There are so many more to be had. We are a creative bunch. I know that we can think of more. But we know that when we're addressing these topics, we are opening ourselves up to criticism and confrontation. So how do we deal with that, especially if we're like conflict averse? Well, I have some practical advice for you there too. So I'm going to address this topic like right here, right now, today, but I am also working on a separate full-length video about dealing with hate comments because I believe that it is going to serve as a like companion to this piece. I think that they go hand in hand. And in that video, I'm going to dive deeper into like the emotional side that comes with dealing with hate comments because I feel like I have been through the ringer and come out the other side. And I want to use that video to encourage you that you are capable of building that emotional resilience. You know, I belong at Weenie Hut Jr. and I was able to do it. But for today, I want to give you kind of the spark notes of some of the more practical approaches that I'm going to cover in that video because I have tried all manner of approaches for dealing with hate comments. I have tried clapping back at them, leaving them there to look stupid, and I have found blocking and deleting to be the most effective approach. I have found that engaging with them only exacerbates them, and worse, they go in and they start harassing my audience members. They never stop at one. They just go in there and start needling everybody and you'll see them for like days on end and it's not cute. I don't want my followers exposed to them or to their beliefs. And if at any point anybody tries to make you feel bad about like fair speech or tries to make some sort of false equivalent, I want to remind you that the ideology that we are dealing with is violently dehumanizing. It is dangerous and it deserves no platform. It is not being hypocritical. It is not tit for tat. I don't want you to let anybody make you feel like you are doing something wrong. And I understand that monitoring comments takes work, right? And if a post gets overwhelming, if it gets out of control, there is nothing wrong with limiting or disabling comments. I also really encourage you to take advantage of the safety features on both Instagram and TikTok. I'm doing a little tutorial over here. You can like pause and rewind it and watch it, but both of those platforms feature like custom keywords lists that you can use to block certain words. Mine are very long. I don't know why they don't like advertise these features because they're really useful. Practice general online safety. This is always a good idea. Don't give information about your location. Don't tag locations until after you've left. Check the backgrounds of your posts to make sure that house numbers are not visible. Check the tags of your pet's collars to make sure that a phone number isn't visible. You might want to blur that out. I always err on the side of stranger danger. I understand worrying about repercussions. I think that it's a real fear, and I think that your comfort level is ultimately up to you. For me, I feel that as like a white woman, this is a way that I can use my privilege. I experience relatively little discomfort moving through the world. I can be uncomfortable here. And if you are feeling spooked about the potential for like future government repercussions, I encourage you to take a note from Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny. Do not obey in advance. Rolling over for fascists is how we get fascism. In talking about resistance, I think that it's easy to get overwhelmed. And so before we run off and start posting, I want us to consider the role that we want to play in the fight ahead. So we can't do it all. And I think that feeling the need to like comment on everything that crosses our path is going to lead to overwhelm and burnout, both for ourselves and for our audience members, right? I think that an effective and commonly recommended strategy is to pick an issue or two that feel close to your heart and to focus on those. We all have different personalities, and I think that it's worth considering the approach and the tone that we want to take. Whether you want to inform your audience or uplift and reassure them, or whether you want to like spur them into action. Some approaches involve getting like heartfelt and personal with your audience. Some involve processing your negative feelings offline so that you can show up as a support. I have found it to be a really helpful exercise to like actually sit down and write out a code of conduct for myself. I did this for my account just in general, and I really recommend it, but I have like revised it to include how I want to tackle political content specifically. And I think that it's useful to have a guidepost for ourselves if we're feeling decentered to kind of look at what our mission and our motivation is. And I want to spend a minute on what I don't want us to do, which is creating an environment where people are only speaking up out of pressure. I think that doing so runs the risk of people like slapping up an infographic and like dusting off their hands and being like, well, I did my part. I think that the point of making noise is to create an environment where it feels safer for others to make noise and to speak up on behalf of people who can't, right? There are people in positions where it's genuinely unsafe to speak up, and we have no way of knowing who that is. I think that we should focus on what we can control and pave the way for others and encourage effort when we see it. Because to be abundantly clear, I think that the most meaningful change is done offline. I think that it's rooted in local communities, and I think that some of the most tangible ways to help cannot be done through an online presence, and some are in fact harmed by an online presence. But I think that we can be examples. I think that change involves looking around at the community that we're in and saying, how can I affect this for the better? And for a lot of us, we have stumbled into a large online pet platform. That's the community that I'm working with. It is within our power, and I would argue our responsibility, to make this a safer space for our community and for our fellow creators. And at a time when the world feels so scary and out of control, we are all we've got. Thank you so much for listening. I would really appreciate it if you would share this video with a friend. Subscribing and turning on notifications helps me out a lot as well. I also run a Patreon with secret cat pictures and Justin's button data. We have a Discord community over there with an anti-fascist book club. Justin came to say hello just in time. But I believe that education should be free, and that means relying on your support. As always, I welcome your feedback. If you have ideas or things that I missed, I am all ears as long as you are nice. We love you very much. Stay safe.